If you had told me a year ago that Marcus would be the one to cut the deepest, I would have laughed it off. A full-bellied, carefree laugh, the kind we used to share under the soft pink sunsets of our youth. We were brothers, not by blood, but by bond, by the thousand quiet moments that wove our lives together. Stolen cigarettes behind the old train station, late-night confessions over greasy diner coffee, bruised knuckles from defending each other in high school brawls. 20 years, a whole life. And yet, it took him less than 5 minutes to rip it all apart. It started with a message, just a casual ping on Signal. Yo man, crazy opportunity with crypto. Let's move fast, like old times. I was sitting at the little cafe where we used to meet after work, my laptop open, the steam from my coffee swirling into the chill of an autumn afternoon. I smiled when I saw his name pop up. Marcus was always the wild one, the risk taker. I was the steady hand. Together, we were unstoppable. There was no hesitation in my fingers as I typed back, "Tell me more." He spun the story perfectly, just like he always had. Some new Bitcoin investment scheme, a limited window, insane returns, private server access, NDA level secrecy, all the juicy hooks that Marcus had learned to dangle over the years. But this wasn't some stranger peddling snake oil. This was Marcus. The same Marcus who sat with me in the ER when my mom had her first stroke. The same Marcus who drove through 3 states in a snowstorm to make it to my wedding when his own life was falling apart. The same Marcus who once, in a drunken haze, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're the only real family I've got." I didn't doubt him, not for a second. I transferred 2 Bitcoin to the wallet address he gave me. At the time, it felt almost exhilarating, a rekindling of the old fire, a reminder that after all these years, some things stayed sacred. For the first few hours, Marcus kept up the charade. Screenshots of growing returns, fake updates from account managers, even a Zoom call where he played both investor and consultant. His eyes were shifty, but I chalked it up to excitement. I should have known. God, I should have known. It all unraveled the next morning. The wallet was drained, the investment site was gone. Marcus stopped replying. Panic clawed at me, but somewhere deep inside, a colder, sharper certainty had already begun to spread. The slow, agonizing birth. I called him. Voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I drove to his apartment, a cramped second-floor unit above a Vietnamese bakery, the place that still smelled like burnt sugar and wet concrete. His door was open, not wide, just cracked, enough to show the empty walls, the discarded mattress, the life that had been packed up and abandoned overnight. He was gone. The weeks that followed were a purgatory of anger and disbelief. I replayed everything, every stupid choice, every ignored instinct, every moment I chose faith over caution. And then came the memories, unbidden and merciless. Marcus stealing a bottle of whiskey when we were 16, but coming back the next day to pay for it because he said it felt wrong. Marcus standing beside me at my father's funeral, our hands clutched so tightly that my fingers went numb. Marcus crying in my living room the night his fiancée left him, saying, "I have no one left but you, man. Just you." When had that Marcus died? Or worse, had he been a lie the whole time? I received a letter 2 months later. No return address, just my name, scrawled in the same messy handwriting I used to copy off his homework. Inside was a single page. "So, I'm sorry. I was drowning. I needed a way out. You were the only one I knew would trust me without question. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just didn't want you thinking it was easy for me. It wasn't." No apology could have stitched the gaping hole he left behind. Forgiveness is a funny thing. It's not clean. It's not noble. It's a festering wound you learn to walk with, a ghost that sits across from you at every empty chair, whispering questions you can't answer. I still think about him sometimes. When Bitcoin hits a new high, when I pass by the old train station and catch the scent of smoke and metal in the air, when I hear a song we used to blare in his battered Toyota Corolla, all windows down, all dreams ahead of us, I wonder if he feels the weight of it like I do. I wonder if he hears my name in the quiet moments, decked the same way his name haunts mine. But most of all, I wonder if 20 years meant anything at all, or if friendship, like currency, can be traded and spent until it's worth nothing but the ashes it leaves behind. It was 4 years later when I saw him again. I wasn't looking for him. I'd stopped looking a long time ago, forced myself to seal that chapter with thick, ugly stitches. Therapy, new friends, new routines. All the things you're supposed to do when you're trying to rebuild a world that someone else smashed. But life doesn't care about your carefully laid scaffolding. It was a humid summer night, the kind that presses against your skin and makes the whole world feel close and suffocating. I was at a dive bar in a city 200 miles from where we grew up. A business trip gone late, a random Yelp search for decent whiskey, and there he was. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the low lights and the haze of too many cigarettes. But then he turned his head, and there was no mistaking it. That same crooked nose from when we fought in 8th grade, and he refused to let me take the blame. That same scar above his eyebrow from when we crashed our bikes racing downhill too fast to stop. Marcus. Older. Thinner. A little hollow around the eyes. But him. I stood frozen for a long moment, drink sweating in my hand, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. Part of me wanted to turn and disappear into the night to let the past stay buried. But another part, a darker, hungrier part, needed answers. So I walked over. He didn't see me at first. He was nursing a cheap beer, hunched over, staring at the battered wood of the bar like he could fall into it if he just stared hard enough. I slid onto the stool beside him. The air between us snapped taut, electric. "Hey, Marcus," I said, voice even. He flinched like he'd been shot. Slowly, almost painfully, he turned to face me. His mouth opened, closed. A dozen emotions flashed across his face. Guilt, fear, something that looked dangerously close to hope. He looked like a man bracing for a bullet. "Shit," he breathed. I never thought." "Yeah," I said. "You didn't think I'd ever see you again." He swallowed hard, Adam's apple bobbing. "I deserve that." "No," I said quietly, leaning in so he could feel the weight of every word. "You deserve worse." He nodded, like he agreed. Like he had been waiting for this, needing it. There was a long, heavy silence. The world around us blurred, the clink of glasses, the low thrum of bad music, until it was just me and him, the wreckage of 20 years piled like rubble between us. "I'm sorry," he said again, but the words were limp, brittle things. They broke apart the moment they left his mouth. "You stole from me, Marcus. You didn't just take my money. You took you. You took us." My voice cracked, raw and bloody. He closed his eyes. "I know." "No, you don't," I snapped. I was trembling now, years of anger and hurt and betrayal boiling up, spilling over. "You have no idea what it did to me. You were my brother, and you left me bleeding in the dirt for some fucking Bitcoin scam." The bartender glanced over warily, but I waved him off. I wasn't here to make a scene. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to bury a corpse. Marcus opened his eyes, and for the first time I saw it. The complete and utter ruin of him. The man who once dared to dream of building empires with me was now just a ghost, a hollow thing wearing his face. "I lost everything," he whispered. "After I took it, after I left, it didn't fix anything. It made it worse. I spent it trying to fix other mistakes, and it just kept falling apart. I thought I could come back once I made it right." He laughed bitterly. "But you can't come back from some things." I stared at him, feeling the years, the weight of them, the suffocating pressure of love twisted into something monstrous. Maybe in another life I could have hated him properly. Maybe if it had been anyone else. But this was Marcus. And part of me, the broken, stubborn part, still remembered the boy who held my hand in the hospital waiting room, too scared to say anything but refusing to leave me alone. I set my glass down. "I'm not going to hit you," I said, voice low. "I'm not going to scream. I'm not even going to ask for my money back because I know now it was never about the money." He looked at me, confused, broken. "It was about you, trusting you, and you." I exhaled sharply, forcing down the lump in my throat. "You killed that. You killed us." Marcus nodded slowly, his shoulders sagging under the weight of it. "I hope it was worth it," I said, rising from the stool. My heart was hammering, but for the first time in years, I felt lighter. Like dropping a stone I'd been carrying so long I forgot it was even there. I turned and walked away, leaving him behind in that smoky bar, drowning in the choices he'd made. Life marched on after that night. New cities, new faces, new rhythms. I built something steadier, slower. The fire that once made me reckless had cooled into something more deliberate. A quiet life, mostly unmarred by the chaos Marcus had left behind. I thought that was the end of it. A meeting in a dark bar, words like tombstones laid over the grave of what we'd been. A final chapter, closed. But Marcus had always been the unpredictable one. It started with a letter, not an email, not a text, a real letter, thick, cream-colored paper, my name scrawled in that same goddamn messy handwriting. No return address. Again, inside was a single sentence. Check your wallet. At first, I almost tossed it. A scam, a joke, a ghost trying to claw its way back into my carefully stitched together world. But curiosity, that old bitter friend, gnawed at me. I pulled up my Bitcoin wallet, the one I barely touched anymore, the one that felt cursed the way some places feel haunted. And there it was. 2 Bitcoin. Back. Fully returned. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, the numbers blurring, my breath caught somewhere between disbelief and anger. Was it a trick? Some kind of final mind game? Or was this real? A week later, another letter arrived. I knew money wouldn't fix it. It never could. But I couldn't live with what I owed you rotting in my chest. It took me 4 years of shit jobs and hustling and scraping just to get it back. I didn't spend it. I didn't gamble it. I didn't run from it. Every time I wanted to give up, I thought of you. I thought of us. There was no plea for forgiveness, no request to meet, no apology dressed in bright, desperate colors. Just a repayment, an acknowledgement, a man kneeling before the ruin he had made without asking for a hand up. Weeks passed. I told myself it changed nothing, that I could still keep the past entombed where it belonged. But guilt is a hydra. Cut off one head, and two more grow back in its place. Late one night, after too much whiskey and too little sleep, I sat at my desk, staring at a blank email draft. Finally, I typed 2 words. Thank you. I hit send to the last burner email address he'd used years ago. No expectation, no conditions, just those 2 simple words. I never got a reply. Years later, I'd hear from mutual friends, whispers that Marcus had finally gotten clean, started a small mechanic shop outside a nowhere town, living a life so quiet it barely rippled the surface of the world. He never reached out again, never tried to force his way back into my life. And maybe that was the real redemption. Understanding that some wounds are too deep to sew shut, and loving someone enough to let the pain be part of the cost. I still think about him sometimes, not with the white-hot rage I once carried, but with a kind of weary, tender sadness, like thinking about a star that burned too bright, too wild, and then collapsed under its own impossible weight. I keep the first letter he ever sent after the betrayal in a box in my closet, the scrawled "I'm sorry," and beside it, the second one, "Check your wallet." They sit there together, side by side, like bookends to a story that shaped me more than I like to admit. Some friendships don't end with shouting or violence. Some end in silence, in the quiet spaces where love used to live, and betrayal moves in like a tenant who never quite leaves. But even broken, even burnt to ash, there are some things you carry with you. Some things you choose to carry. Because no matter how it ended, it mattered. And that, I think, is enough.